Friday, or this is Monday night. Sorry, I am trying. Seems like my glasses got so sweaty today when I was out walking, and I'm having trouble seeing out of one side of the lens. So I'm Stacy Renee. I'm a mindset coach, a life coach, a life on life's terms coach. Life is life, and isn't it? So tonight we're going to be talking about compatibility. Compatibility. I don't think a lot of people think about that. We talked about self-accountability last week. So this week it'll be compatibility. And so, I work with people, and sometimes people are just trying to distract themselves and get themselves off into a relationship. Oh, that'll make me feel better, right? The problem is that oftentimes we don't even know. There's a smudge still. Look, the struggle's real down here because I'll be walking and these glasses will be like getting nasty with sweat, and then they'll start fogging up and all these. So anyway, compatibility. Hello, JR. How are you? How do you feel about compatibility? A lot of people I don't think about compatibility, and I'm going to go into that. Is sometimes people are just good. Well, good. So I don't know. I know for me at one time in my life, I didn't really think about compatibility. I thought about attraction. I would be attracted to somebody. And so we've looked at, some of the ways that we find ourselves attracted to certain people. Maybe it's somebody familiar. Hey, John London, I'm so glad you're able to stay up with us. How are you feeling? So, compatibility. So let me ask you guys, when y'all date, did y'all think about compatibility? They say, it's been said, by some of the videos when, I've looked at relationship videos and we've studied relationships a little bit, is that, oh, yes, that is sad news. That is sad news. It's crazy, these wildfires, and they had them in Canada too, so yeah, these wildfires are something else. My friend in Valencia hasn't said anything about them. It's hot. She gets up in the morning and goes to the gym, and she's just like, it's just hot. So she hasn't really been affected, I don't think. And she's in Valencia, so that is sad. Are you being affected? Can you breathe, John London? So what they're saying about relationships is that men know, when they meet a woman, if she's long-term relationship material or short-term relationship material. Usually that's what it says. That's what they tell us anyway. So, the thing is that a lot of women don't hear what men say, and vice versa, I would suppose, is that a lot of men don't hear what women say. And so the compatibility comes with the communication. Compatibility and communication. Are we listening to what somebody says? Depending on the wind, can smell the smoke of wildfires here in England, but it's been clear today. Good. I'm glad it's been clear today, because yeah, these fires, that's something else. So, like I said, a lot of people, do this compatibility thing. They don't know about compatibility until it doesn't work, right? Do a lot of people think about compatibility in the beginning? Or, and so I wanted to draw this to ourselves, because like I always start with self, forgiveness, boundaries with self. Wildfires across the world are getting worse every year. I know, right? They are. My day was good. I did a lot of walking today. I probably got at least 4,000 steps in, because on Mondays and Fridays, I walk all the way down to the port side, and then I walk all the way back up. So I get a lot of steps, and it is hot out there. By the time I get home, the back of my hair is all wet, and I use an umbrella, to walk too, because the sun is really, but thank you. Yes, it's been an easy day. Then a friend brought some pizza over, so I ate a little pizza. And so it's been a good day. Thank you for asking. How was your day? Yeah, y'all got some rain, though. Did the rain put the fires out, right? All right. So in thinking about compatibilities, maybe it's not something that we've thought about. I know that for me in dating, I used to not think about compatibility because I wasn't listening. And what I had to learn is in looking at the problem, and compatibility is one of the first things on my mind with anything coming and staying in my life. That's good. Yeah, because it can be. It's not just romantic relationships. And that's why today we're talking about compatibility with self. Because a lot of times when people don't feel comfortable with their self, that's when they look for a relationship or something. Hello, beautiful Kim. How are you this evening? I see those hearts. I know my girl's in the house. Thank you. I get to see you tomorrow. Tomorrow. So, compatibility begins with us. And this is the thing, is this isn't just talking about single people and compatibility. This is talking about married folk and compatibility too, because a lot of people who are married today didn't think of it. That's you giving the hearts, JR? I just love those hearts. Thank you. Thank you, JR. Thank you. Brian Thomas. Hello, darling. The rain has been welcome, but today and next few days are hot again. Wasn't humid or oppressive heat. That's good, because it was humid here. The heat isn't so oppressive, but the humidity, like I think, well, I do Fahrenheit. So in Fahrenheit, it's usually around 88 degrees. But John is in London, England. So, oh no, Kim, I'm sorry to hear that your dad's back in the hospital. Oh goodness, we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about tomorrow, don't we, darling? So we're talking about compatibility tonight because, like I say, some people, even married people, what kind of fruit did I get from the market? I got pineapple. Pineapple is so good for your digestion. I'm not in Canada, Brian. I'm in Mexico right now. I'm near Cancun, Mexico. We don't have the fires down here. It's hot, but no fires. Thank you, JR, for these hearts. So, no, I'm in Mexico. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. I know, right? I'm glad I get to talk to Kim tomorrow. If she needs me tonight, she knows, but I think we'll be fine tomorrow. Kim is a strong lady. All right, so compatibility begins with you is our framing for tonight, is learning that what's compatible with us. Because, in working with married people, sometimes they'll say, oh, they get on my nerves doing this, because married people sometimes get in a rut and a routine point in time in their marriages that they're not compatible. So, I know, right? Yeah. Thank you so much, darling. You do got this, but I look forward to talking and breaking it down tomorrow, because that's a lot. That's a lot. So, sometimes with married people, it's like they lose touch with each other. It seems like maybe we're not compatible anymore. And sometimes we don't know if we're compatible with ourselves anymore, because a lot of times in marriages and kids, people lose track of each other, and instead of thinking they're partners and for each other, they tend to think that they're against each other, that this person is against them. They don't say they're against me, but it may feel like it. And then in other relationships, a lot of times people don't think about the compatibility thing, is they're like, oh, we romanticize a lot of things. And we talked about that last week in looking at self accountability, or the week before, talking about maybe songs, kind of provoke this romanticizing, Disney movies, these kind of things. So when we get into, compatibility, is that it's more than Disney movies and music and other movies, is that it takes more. It takes that listening. But sometimes people try to fit themselves into somebody else's box rather than looking at what am I compatible with. And this is part of that self accountability and self of who we are. And are we compatible with ourselves? Because sometimes we idealize and romanticize that we want certain things. And it's not just people. I idealized and romanticized that I wanted to live in the country on 10 acres one time. I've told you all that. And I did live on the country in 10 acres. But then we had to have cows because of ag use. And I told y'all those cows got out of the barbed wire. Then I found myself out there. So sometimes this romanticizing, it's not all bad because we get to learn trial and error, right? And so, but getting to know compatibility wise with a partner wise, not just a thing, is how to communicate. That's the thing, is to be able to hear it. So here's my notes, and I'm looking forward to your comments on this. So y'all let me know what you think as we go along, as we break this down. So when we hear the word compatibility, most of us immediately think about someone else. But are we compatible? So sometimes people are having people live up to bars, whether they're married or hey, Neto, prayers for you today. Well, that's good that it's for you today. Okay. So, maybe what if we're asking the wrong question? What if the person isn't whether you're compatible with someone else? What if it's whether you're compatible with yourself? I'm glad that you're asking for prayers for you today, Neto. Prayers for you, okay? So, do your choices reflect your values? As a lot of times we need to look at what our values are. And do we have values? True, 10 acres would take it. Yes. I know, right? I want to be able to see the trees and see the beauty, but as I'm getting older, I'm not going to want to maintain these things. So, I have these dreams. I hope that I can still see the stars. I don't mind living closer to the city, but I still want to be able to see the stars at night. So I'm having to, look at pictures and look at these things that I want so I can get it in my head. Okay, thank you, Neto. I'm glad that you subscribed. I appreciate that. So what if it's whether you're compatible with yourself? Do we think about, am I compatible with myself? And hear me out, because we may say we want something, we have our values, but sometimes when we're talking to other people, we dismiss our own values. And those values are very important in your relationship with yourself and your relationship with others, because a lot of people sell themselves out with their values in relationship. So the thing is, and then they won't trust themselves and they won't trust someone else if they're, it doesn't match. So whether, do your actions match with what you say you want? Remember, I've told y'all I used to go to my coach and say, I want security, but yet I was choosing a relationship where it wasn't secure. So our choices need to match what we say that we want rather than us settling. Costa Rica has dark skies, I think. It's going to get rare, unfortunately, especially with Elon Musk and satellites. I know. And those data centers, those centers that they're building all over the place. Like Kim has them in Tennessee. They're trying to put them in Texas, but Aaron Brockovich is trying to stop it in places, because those data centers too, that's going to be something else. But let's look at our compatibility while we're still alive, while we're still here, before it gets totally polluted, because that's my soapbox. If I could get people to stop building new buildings and destroying our trees and our ecosystems, that would be great. Why can't we just, if they have to have a new building, because I love to redo stuff. I love to, repurpose, redo, and all of those things. And so I wish that people would just build on buildings that have already been built if they need to build something, but quit cutting the trees down. But that's all I'm going to say about that. Hello, Jason Stillwell. I'm great. And we're talking about fires all over the place and other things. So, okay, Amir, no, darling, we don't talk about religion. We don't talk about my age. We don't talk about my dating life. Not that there is one. But anyway, we don't talk about those things on here. We'd stay on topic. And yeah. So, yeah, reconditioning, JR. Hello, beautiful mama. So you're welcome to stay, Amir, but we're going to stay on topic. So what we're talking about tonight is, are you compatible with yourself? Yeah, are you compatible with yourself, Amir? That's our topic tonight, because I know a lot of people, sometimes I'll be talking to people and they're just overwhelmed with life, and they'll say, maybe I need to start dating. And it's like, if you're overwhelmed with your life, you might not even be compatible with yourself. You're just trying to get a distraction. So our self is so important. And, this is why there's so much chaos out there and everything. Is a lot of people look, and then what happens is in this distraction, you're from London and enjoy life. You just got a new car. Well, congratulations on the new car. Thank you, Amir. Jason, why can't the buildings, the way the ancient Egyptians build the pyramids, and they'll last thousands of years instead of half a century? I know, right? I just love the old buildings. I think there's so much character. That's why I want to move to Europe, is there's so many old buildings over there. And I just love it. And even down here in Mexico, there's a lot of modern stuff. They like to do the modern stuff, and I don't really like the modern stuff. It looks too boxy for me. It doesn't have character. I'm not into the modern stuff. So anyway, so my compatibility is with the old stuff, with the stuff that's seasoned and the stuff that has character and all of this. It means a lot to me. Yeah, the modern way of life is not really compatible with how we are meant to live. Yeah. But Europe is really good for our food quality and quality of life. We have paid holidays, etc. That's amazing. That is true. I love the buildings in Europe. I can't wait to get over there and see them. Dr. Mark, how are you doing? Yes, we're talking about Europe. Are you still in Italy? So, yeah. So we are talking about compatibility tonight, you all. So, do your choices reflect your values, and do your actions match what you say you want? I think North Spain and Portugal are the best options in Europe long term. Thank you for that, John London, because I'm looking at that, is that, yeah, Spain, I can definitely live in Spain, and then travel to all the other places. I can travel to Italy. I can travel to Greece. I can travel to all the other cool places, but I don't necessarily need to live there. So do you trust yourself? This is a big component here. Do you trust yourself? A lot of times when people are trying to distract, it's because they don't trust themselves. They don't want to look at themselves, right? So, Amir, travel in Europe is very easy if you don't like driving. We have trains interconnecting everywhere for cheap. Yes, that's the plan, because the older I get, the less responsibility I want. JR, if we're compatible, good, but we are constantly changing. We are, and this is what's important with that communication, right, JR, is that we need to be able to communicate as we are changing and not feel like because we're changing that we're opposed. But sometimes when you're in a partnership, the partner doesn't want to change and yet you want to evolve. And that really causes problems. Lake Como is, yeah, I'm still in Lake Como, northern Italy until the end of the month. And then the month of August will be at home at Yorkshire, England. Oh, that's amazing, Dr. Mark. Did you get to swim today? Amir, yes, Lake Como. I've seen pictures. I've not been there. I'm going to go there, though. You should be comfortable within your own environment. However, you need to accept some improvement and change. Yes, because we're always evolving, whether we want to or not. This age thing, like I said, as I get older, I want less responsibility. I certainly wouldn't want to take care of 10 acres now. Didn't really care for it back then after a while. Yeah, we need to catch up to each other, and be able to communicate and be inspired. Okay, Nita, we'll pray for a year to get a girl, and we'll talk about compatibility. Maybe that will help you get a girlfriend, okay? Jason Stillwell, I'm becoming compatible with I love that, Jason Stillwell. I like old-fashioned values and being a real gentleman. To me, the greatest compliment I get from women is that I am a gentleman and I'm developing those values. That is amazing, Jason Stillwell. Good deal. Because, yeah, gentleman is yeah. That's an amazing trait to have. So, do we trust ourselves? You know, it sounds like Jason trusts himself. And I know that I've trusted myself, but I haven't always trusted myself. I would put more trust in somebody else. You see, and this is the thing. This is why our next one on Wednesdays, it's going to be talking about if your picker is broke. Because a lot of people will say, my picker's broke. Well, that's because you're not working on your picker. That's all. That's all. Because we can fix our picker. Yes, darling. I did swim this morning. Early water temperature this morning was 83 degrees. I couldn't believe it. And oh, very cool. Very cool. I'm glad you got to swim. That sounds amazing. Down here we have this stuff called sargasso. Have you heard of that, Dr. Mark? And it is not pretty. It is not nice. And I have not gotten to go in the sea. All right, Amir. I have a flight in 9 hours heading to Dubai with a friend for a short holiday. Oh, that'll be fun. Have fun, Amir. That sounds like a great time. Dr. Mark, I am 100% old school. However, I had to learn about improving and modernization are sometimes good for us. Yes, yes. Thailand is the best, going in October. I have not gone to Thailand. I have not. Thank you. That's good, Dr. Mark. I think that's very, I get, I'm kind of old-fashioned too, you all, and so not a lot of people like that. And we're going to talk about that here in these notes because I wrote about that a little bit. So, do you trust yourself, or have you become so busy meeting expectations that you've lost touch with what's true for you? See, a lot of times people are meeting those expectations that they lose themselves. Thailand is very cheap, whereas Europe is super expensive. I have heard that. Thank you, Amir. Yes, and I had a friend who went to Thailand, and he works in the films, so he edited a film in Thailand. I had a house. Oh, that is so amazing, Dr. Mark, that you get to go there whenever you want. Holiday home. I know, right? So many people think that they're attracting the wrong people. I had a client just this week, she's like, I hope I don't attract narcissists anymore. And I'm like, darling, because she's done a lot of work with it. And I'm like, darling, you're going to attract them. And if you're an attractive person, you're going to attract the narcissist. I'm like, you're going to attract them. The thing is that you'll recognize them, and then you don't buy in to the love bombing. You don't buy in to the charming. You can tell. You can tell when it's over the top, and it's an act once you start doing that healing work. Jason, I'm learning to trust myself. I must listen. Yes, that's what John London was talking about the other night. I must learn to listen to my gut more often, especially when it's screaming, no, you'll get in trouble or hurt, or it's not right for you. Absolutely, because our gut brain and our brain are communicating, the amygdala, and all of this. This is communicating, sending signals all the time back and forth. And so if we listen, I'm so happy to hear that you're doing that, because a lot of people aren't even thinking about their bodies. So when people are self-sabotaging, it's typically the body that takes the brunt and the butt of self-sabotaging, whether it's food, drinks, alcohol, drugs, these kind of things, because we all want the shortcut, or we did. I did. Now I don't want the shortcut. The shortcut kicked my butt. But so when the pain gets great enough, we'll learn to work on ourselves. And so seeking validation outside of ourselves and these things outside of ourselves, when we get to know ourselves, it's nice to have those friends that validate us, and it's nice to have that reinforcement of what our values are. But to know them ourselves, not to take them on because this is this person's and put another person above yourself. We're supposed to be mutual. So that's what's important in compatibility, is that you have mutual things that you can talk about and that you can admire about the other person. You don't have to be exactly alike. Compatibility doesn't mean that it's exactly alike, but it can't be so far removed that it's annoying, right? So many people think they keep attracting the wrong people, and the real question may be, are we living in alignment with what we're trying to create? When we know what we're trying to create. When I'm working with single people, I have them make a list out. What kind of person do you want to attract? Not what you're not trying to attract. What do you want to attract? Because it's very important in knowing if you want to be compatible with somebody, what you want. So that you're not going to villainize them later and they're not going to villainize you later. Because this is the thing, is when we don't listen to who's sitting in front of us and they're telling us who they are, we need to listen. Because then we'll know if we're compatible or not. So when we're disconnected from ourselves, we often mistake what's familiar for what's healthy, just because it may seem familiar. You know, that so like I said, not everything has to match each other. In fact, when you're dealing with narcissists, they will match exactly what you're saying to get in your if you've dealt with narcissists before, they will match you like that. But it may not, they don't know who they are, so compatibility, and I don't like to throw that around lightly, so I hope I don't lose people by that. But the reality is that there are people that will match your energy, match what you do to get inside, because they've lost their sense of identity. So it's about living honestly enough with yourself that your relationship begin reflecting the values that you want to live by. Like for me, if somebody don't want to walk the beach with me, then they probably can't do that. They probably can't be my partner, because that's something that is important to me, is that I want to be able to walk the beach. So if somebody doesn't want to walk the beach with me, now we can negotiate if they have to walk at nighttime and not in the daytime or whatever. But, and when I go to the beach, I don't spend all day out there. But, it's these things like this. And then my values, what is important to me. I'm not, if I go eat with somebody and they're tacky and rude to the waiter or a taxi driver, then I'm not going to like them either. I'm not going to be compatible. So it's about living honestly with yourself, that your relationships begin reflecting values that you already live by. So instead of asking, why do I keep attracting the wrong people, we need to ask, am I compatible with myself? Am I compatible with myself, so that I'm not drawn into somebody I'm going to call a villain later on in life? Amir, sometimes I do think how beautiful life would be if we still lived in small communities and no gas, oil, capitalism. But being able to travel the world so easily is also amazing. There is. And it's just really about our health too, Amir. Dr. Mark, I think I mentioned to you when I was 62 years old, I went back to college for 3 years to get another degree in music theory and performance. So I had to learn then about modernization. Yes, I'm about to go back to college when I get to Spain. I'm going on a student visa. And so I'll get to learn more Spanish, and yeah, Ramon, they communicate better than we do with others. Yeah. And then John London, about not losing ourselves in a relationship. It's important to be strong and secure in each other's characters, self, and enjoy ourselves fully in one another. It's sad to see lives not shared. It is. It is. Amir, we live in a golden period and need to enjoy life. The people before us had World War I, World War II, before that slavery, before that the plague. So we are blessed to see the world and live long with health care and etc. Yes, there's so much. When I get to walk, I'm happy that I get to walk, because someday, like I was telling, I got to walk today and practice my Spanish. So when I was walking back, it's a long walk down this causeway that I walked down, and this young man, started talking to me when we were walking. And so I got to practice my Spanish with him, and yeah, it was cool to get to do that. So it's I get to walk, because I was telling him that when my great grandma was, my abuela was 89 years old, that she fell down and, she wasn't able to walk anymore. But that I think that I get my wanting to walk like I do from my great grandma, because she walked to town and everything else in Waxahachie, Texas, until she was 89 years old. Then she fell off the porch. The first time she fell off the porch, she was okay, but the second time she fell down, she was not okay. So yeah, she lived to be 96. It's John London. That's really true about insecure people and narcissists who are a type of insecure person. Yes, it is. And once we heal from that, we will know when somebody's mirroring that. We'll sense it. because once we learn to not to have to attract the familiar, what was familiar with us at that time when we were, easy prey for that, when we just desired it so much that we would abandon ourselves. This is why it's important for us to be compatible with ourselves, so that we don't abandon ourselves because we desire someone to understand us so much. So I like what the Bible said about spouses being equally yoked, and what the Quran says about people being created in pairs, soulmates. Yeah, that's really cool. I do believe there's somebody out there for everybody. Dr. Mark says, I would like to see the people of the world have better agreement, better life, more love for each other, and more respect for each other, but the jealousy, contemptuous heart and minds ruin. Exactly. And some of it's a learned behavior, for people growing up. And that's what I like to get on here. That's where I set my intention is, first off, I love getting on here because like-minded. A lot of us are like-minded in here, and that's what we're feeding this algorithm of love, of like-mindedness, of being able to rise above what's, being fed to us, because a lot of the algorithms on here are feeding things like other people's business and this hate and discontent that's going on in the world. So my heart is so appreciative of you all joining me here and feeding this kind of algorithm, because it is what we focus on. It's what are we going to focus on? Because we'll get sick focusing on the toxicity, because there is toxicity in the world. I was in a gathering last night, and it's like we are who we are looking for. And that kind of goes with what I'm talking about tonight. Our compatibility is we are who we're looking for. If we're looking for somebody to save us, then we need to heal what we think needs to be saving so that we're whole, because you were born whole, but things happen. We get lost along the way. John London, though from experience one has multiple potential soulmates throughout life, and preferential heart has many rooms. I like to call those, because I'm not mad at anybody from my past that I dated or had relationships with. They're not villains, and I'm certainly not a victim. They're catalysts for my growth, though. They help me to get to know myself. Unfortunately, we've talked about this, about how sometimes we know what we don't want. And some of them, I got to have the experience of what I don't want, but they also helped me see what I do want, because they also had good qualities. So I myself, and knowing myself, that was one thing they brought up in the talk I was in last night too, is to know thyself. And when we know ourselves, we know if we're compatible with somebody else. But see, it's about that self-esteem factor, and that comfort is, a lot of the times when I'm working with people and they're like, I think maybe I'm ready to date. And it's like, you haven't finished your work on yourself yet. So I don't know about all that. That seems like more trouble. But yeah, me too, John London. Dr. Mark, many people like love and respect me because who I am and how I am towards them. But there are quite a few people who dislike me because they're jealous. Yeah, that happens. That happens. Most people like me because I'm not a threat, to people. My energy when people are around me is I've got an energy to where I'm not a threat to anybody, but I think that probably I might get judged here and there by people who are, people, I don't know. I suspect I get judged here and there, especially when I don't conform, to what they want. If somebody, yeah, JR. There are people that are jealous. I learned jealousy growing up. I used to be a jealous person. I had to learn, because I learned jealousy growing up. But what I had to learn was that there's admiration. And this is what I like to talk about here, is how we can grow from one thing to another. Because I know that I'm not the only one out there who struggled with jealousy. But how can we grow from that? And that's my experience. I try to help people learn. The admiration is on the other end, and it feels a lot better than jealousy. So we must have something in common, definitely. Yes. Yeah, walking on the beach, dancing. Dancing's fun. This was a good live to stumble upon, Amir. Oh, thank you, Amir. Very good advice. I'm off for a nap before my flight. Okay, thank you, Amir. I hope that you subscribe to the channel and that we'll get to see you again, okay? I hope you'll come back. Have a good flight and a good rest. JR, I'm always compatible, or at least I try. It's about learning to know what your values are. Yes, have a great holiday, Dr. John London, England. Thank you, Ramon. Yeah, I'm easy to talk to. Yeah, no one feels, yeah, threatened at all talking to me. Right. So that one question may change every, thank you, Ramon. I appreciate that. That one question may change every relationship in your life if we think, am I compatible with myself? You know, this immediately turns the mirror inwards instead of pointing fingers. So the questions are, do my actions match my values? Do I trust my own decisions? Do I respect my own boundaries? I tell people I have to set boundaries with myself. You know, that it sometimes something might look nice and good and shiny, but I have to have boundaries with myself. Hello, Pammy. How are you this evening? It's good to see you. So do I comfort myself or expect someone else to? You know, I think in the short I did this morning is sometimes people expect people to entertain them. And that's not compatibility, because after a while, a person can only entertain a person for so long when they're trying to, you know, escape and abandon themselves. Hey, Angela, it's good to see you. I'm glad that you're here. We're talking about compatibility. So, do I respect my own boundaries? Do I comfort myself or expect someone else to? Do I give myself the same grace that I expect from others? That's very important, to give ourselves that grace. So compatibility starts before another person ever enters the picture. You know, when we learn what's compatible to me, like I said, putting that down on paper about what do I want, not what I'm trying to survive from or what I don't want, because we need to heal the survival part. But what do I want? You know, at the top of my list is someone who's confident, because I'm not trying to pick people up by their bootstraps. They have to get their own bootstraps up. I can't do it. I can't do it. So somebody has to be confident, you know, is a big part of compatibility for me, because I'm pretty confident and I need somebody else to be confident. I'm not trying to lift somebody's self-esteem. They have to do that themselves. So compatibility starts with another person. That doesn't mean I can't have compassion. I can't, you know, hold hands. I can't do, because I can do all of that. It's just that somebody who's beating themselves up all the time, I can't change that. They have to do the work on that. So if I say I value peace, but constantly choose chaos, that's not in alignment with, that's not compatibility. John London, if it arises, I always try to transform jealousy into ambition or awareness. That I'd like the same for myself one day, and be happy that we live in a world with blessings for everyone. Absolutely. That's an unlimited universe. That's the thing is that sometimes we grow up in that limitation, and that's very constricting. And we live in a constrictive and expansive universe. I love the polarities. It's when we can acknowledge, but a lot of people are trying not to acknowledge this, and they're just looking for that sparkly stuff outside, you know, of themselves. But when we can acknowledge what is, you know, what we've had to grow from, we can know if we're compatible, or if we're willing to grow with something. We can know if we're compatible. So yeah, I turned jealousy into admiration. I kept thinking, because it don't feel good. And I was like, why am I feeling this way? And it's like, oh, admiration. You admire this person. You don't have to be jealous. Dr. Mark, or you talked one time many months ago about how I had been, yes, yeah, you were shot as a boy, and I've been in a war. I've seen life and death up close, and jealousy breeds contempt. It sure does. It sure does. And that is rough. And that does call, you know, to an awareness. Jealousy does breed contempt. It sure does. And it doesn't feel good on the inside. It's a toxic thing. It's toxic inside of even the person who's jealous. It's not just that they're spewing it out to somebody else, because like me, I don't care if somebody's jealous anymore, you know. But so it doesn't hurt me. This is when we talk about resentments, because the jealousy sometimes can come from a resentment. Sometimes when somebody was jealous of somebody else. I didn't need to become a doctor to learn this as a young man, a young boy, and these things haven't changed. I know you're exactly right. So it's like being that change that we want to see in the world, coming from love, because jealousy isn't a part of love. You know, a lot of young people, myself included, when I was really young, I thought that jealousy was a part of love, and it is not. It is not a part of love. And what we really want is love. I don't know where Epic is, Mom. I hope he'll get on here, but we don't know. Maybe he'll catch it later. He is good about watching the replay. Polaris. What we're talking about tonight is compatibility, Polaris. Welcome, welcome. So we're talking about compatibility, and really compatibility with self, because a lot of people may not even consider compatibility unless the relationship breaks up. Then they say, oh, we just weren't compatible. But when we're compatible with ourselves, we'll know before if we're compatible rather than after we're heartbroken if we're compatible. So it's about, being proactive, knowing ourselves and knowing what we're picking, what do I want? But not just in relationships, it's compatibility with jobs, compatibility with life itself, just like Dr. Mark is saying. There's a lot of jealousy and a lot of things that we're not compatible with out there. And so not letting that have power over us and knowing what we're compatible with is going to help us with our friendships. It's going to help us with our relationship with ourselves being the most important, because that's the reflection outside of ourselves. So if I say I value peace, but I constantly choose chaos, I'm not compatible with my own values. So if I want peace and yet I'm, hanging out with somebody who's got chaos going on all the time and I'm getting called into their drama, that's not a compatible friendship. I've just had that happen recently. And I told that person, this is not, I am not going to be saving you from this stuff, because they're creating some chaos. And so it's like, I'm not. So if I say I want honesty, but I hide my feelings, I'm not compatible with honesty, right? If I want healthy love, but abandon myself to keep the peace, to keep people, then I'm not compatible with healthy love. And it isn't about guilt, it's about just being aware of what I say and what I do. Because how many people, and speaking of compatibility, they say actions speak louder than words, but their own actions aren't matching what they want. They're expecting somebody else to match the actions, speak louder than words, but are they doing the action too? So this is where I see a lot of incompatibility, but it's savable. Is that we just have to be aware of our words, what we're saying and what we're doing, our words and our actions. Our words are reflections of our thoughts. Our actions are reflections of our feelings. When we don't feel like doing something, like was said earlier, when we know our body with our mind, because the first thing is that if we, don't keep our bodies healthy and things like this, we keep saying, I don't feel like it. And so it could be connected with our feelings too. John London, I'll be in my house in Yorkshire next month. That would be fun. See, I hope that when I get over there, I get to chat with y'all. It's 12:38. Not feeling so tired today, but still not getting a lot of sleep. I know you only got 4 hours the other day. If he was jealous, that means he was good looking. Well, there was that, but I was insecure was why I was jealous. See, I had to own that. Okay, I was insecure, and that's why I was jealous. So I had to work on my insecurity and how to process it, why I was insecure, and heal those parts of me, because there was no reason I should be insecure. There was no reason at that time for me to be insecure, but my algorithm, my central nervous system, think of your central nervous system as like your algorithm, what our body tells us, what these transmissions are back and forth to the mind and the body. So yeah, I was jealous. He was good looking, but he also was not, we weren't compatible, but we were at the time because I got to learn things. So he was a catalyst for my growth. He was. I worked on a lot of my daddy issues with him, and he knew it. I used to tell him, my daddy got you in trouble again. Angela. That's nice, Dr. Mark. Yorkshire is very beautiful. Hopefully the weather remains pleasant well into August and September this year. Y'all are sweet. I love y'all. Yeah, Jason Stilwell, jealousy is a very strange thing because it can be normal and natural that comes from a place of defense, but it can easily and frequently does become a destructive force. Yeah, I never can say that I had a good feeling from jealousy. I cannot. I did it a lot when I was younger, and I had to learn how to process it. And it was a lot of that insecurity of not feeling good enough. A lot of people don't feel good enough, feel that have that not good enough. That you wouldn't have so many coaches, Marissa Peer, a lot of people talking about tell yourself you're good enough. I tell people to tell themselves they're good enough. I had to tell myself that I was good enough, and that helped me to heal that insecurity. To know that just jealousy, see, a lot of times with jealousy is that like I've shared before, that if I think somebody's more interesting than me, then that's jealousy. And then I don't think I'm interesting, but because somebody else is interesting doesn't take away my being interesting. And so it's not an either or. So when we were talking about that unlimited universe, that unlimitedness, we get to realizing that we're not in that limited space. Maybe we grew up with limited and lack thoughts, but we don't have to stay there. And so we probably, once we grow out of that insecurity, see, that person needed me to be insecure so that they could that's why they were attracted to me, was because I was insecure, because they could have more power over me if I was insecure. So I find less people now that I'm not insecure. So it's like, yeah. So jealousy is a very, yeah. So, Angela, have you ever competed with someone because you were jealous of what that person had? I think that I'd put that person down. What that looked like for me, Angela, was that I would put that person down. Say that if I was with a person, a guy, and I thought that he liked this other girl, so I would be putting her down. I'd be like, oh, and I'd have him putting her down too, but it didn't keep him from being attracted to her. No. In fact, it probably made her more attractive. And that was immature. That was immature. So I would put somebody or something else down that I was jealous of to make me look more superior, even though that was my false esteem. That was not a real esteem. That's the price to pay for beauty. Yeah, being confident is everything. All of us probably feel a sense of insecurity. I work with a lot of amazing people who get imposter syndrome because, anytime you're going to start something new, there may be this imposter syndrome, not knowing if we're good enough. And that's where that not knowing if I'm going to be good enough to do this, that we may fall back into imposter syndrome. I like how compatible everyone is in the chat too, John London. Yes, I think so too. I love this, that we get to discuss this stuff and that we are feeding this kind of algorithm. And it's not only in this machine and what we're sending out there, because it does send out there, but it's also what we're getting to feel in here, because it's unity and community. And I love that. Growth, not defense. Absolutely, Jason. Yes. Dr. Mark, I can genuinely say for myself, I have never been jealous of anyone. If it had a little bit of envy about something or someone, I would try to find out how I could acquire. That's a healthy way, Dr. Mark. It's definitely healthy. I had to learn that if I wanted what someone had, I had to do what they did. See, growing up, we might have thought, oh, well, they got this because of this, or they got, making stories up, and that's not true. And that's learning that these stories that we make up may not necessarily be true. I talked on Thursday night. I had a thing where we talked about making up stories, that Kim was in it. I had a Thursday night talk about how we can make these stories up and where this comes from. And, we used to make those stories up, and I had to learn for myself, if I wanted what somebody else had, I had to do what they did instead of being jealous and talking smack about them, right? So... what do we do? Thank you, JR. I get jealous when I see a Ferrari. Oh, JR, wait till you get to be my age, because when you see a Ferrari, you'll be like, I ain't getting in that thing. That thing's sitting too low. Or that's me. I don't want to get in a car that sits too low now. It's like I don't want to get in and out of that car. Jealousy stems from insecurity. Yes, it does stem from insecurity a lot. And yeah, you think. So it makes sense as we mature that it lessens. Narcissists I see as immature or haven't grown up in parts of their brain. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Because we can all have emotional immaturity. That inner child wound has emotional immaturity. I've had emotional immaturity. But a narcissist, not all people who have emotional immaturity are narcissists, but all narcissists do have emotional immaturity. So, and there's nothing ever going to be good enough for them because they're never going to feel good enough because they didn't get empathy, that activation of empathy in the brain growing up. That their survival mode cannot fit empathy. That's not something that fits there. JR, when you're good looking, seems like you have more options. Well, I work with a lot of different people, and the thing is that I think a lot of people romanticize, that people that are good looking have a lot of options, and maybe you do, but it doesn't mean you get treated any better. That's the thing, is that I know people that are loved more than a lot of good looking people that I know, that or what would be considered to be good looking people, right? Is that there's a lot of dysfunction there too. It's not as romantic, I don't think, as a lot of people may think. There's options, but is it that there's a lot of beating down too? Some of us don't value themselves enough, and yes, value possessions too much is who we are, not what we have that we must be happy with in the end. Exactly, because when we die, I've seen people who are like, oh, I've got the Gucci bag, the Cartier jewelry, and all of this, and I don't really care about all that. I don't. And so there's some who do, but that doesn't give you your value. You may have some valuable stuff, and some people may be attracted to you for having the valuable stuff, but that's not, so that when we look at value, it's what we have inside, because we can't take that stuff with us. And so how we treat people is what people are going to remember. They're not going to remember the properties, because a lot of people can be terrible people with all those properties, but not everybody is. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that. Jason Stillwell, I've used jealousy to improve myself. If they're smarter than me, I studied more and improved myself. That's good. Used it for a catalyst for your growth, Jason. Exactly. It's learning to take jealousy and using it to improve yourself rather than tearing them down. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a good way to look at that. Mom likes the compatibility in here too. John London, I'm starting to really value myself enough and value good people who match that energy. Absolutely, because that's what it was saying, right? Is that a lot of times we get into relationships that they just seem familiar, like the emotionally unavailable people. If we grew up with emotionally unavailable people, then we may be attracted to emotionally unavailable people, always trying to prove to ourselves that we're worthy and that we're valuable because we didn't feel seen or heard. But when we start healing, we start being attracted to something else, someone else. So we all have to respect what God gave to someone. God will bless us with what we deserve if we wait. And we deserve a lot more than we may consider that we do. And so that waiting is an important component, because if we can wait and not go into this instant gratification and having to have something right now, and that's including relationships. I know for me, when I was young, and I'm going to talk about that, is I used to get, bounce from one relationship to another in my insecurity. Hey, Amy, it's good to see you. How are y'all doing tonight? You and Rusty. Yes, we got an amazing group in here that's very compatible. Dr. Mark, this is a true example of jealousy. My grandfather became jealous of me and something I had, so he actually paid someone to set my house on fire and tried to kill me. Oh my goodness. That is crazy, but I do believe that family can even be very jealous like that. That's terrible, Dr. Mark. That is terrible. Because it really hurts when it's people like family that you hope is going to be on your side. That's your birthright part for them to love you, but not everybody does, right? You're right. You can't take it with you, Amy. That doesn't make you valuable because you can afford to buy some Cartier and all of that. No. Sometimes I think of one of David's Psalms that says something like, "Protect me, those who've been blessed in this world, and that they might not be blessed in the eyes of God or the next life." Yeah, I think that as we get the emotional maturity, we want, like just like you were saying earlier, John London, that we want, and I know that for me, even when I've resented somebody or been jealous of somebody, praying for them to have what I want for myself until I matched it, right? Until I matched that energy. Thank you. Last Bench Society. But what if you have them and someone's saying this to you? I don't know. I don't get the whole context, Last Bench Society. Can you explain it a little bit more? How do you travel with Grinch, Stacy? Do you use a special cage? I will have to get a special cage. I have traveled with Grinch. I didn't take a special cage. I just took a smaller cage traveling around here with Grinch. But when I moved to Europe, I've got to get a special cage to take on the plane with me. And I thought I bought one. I had this backpack looking thing that I thought would fit, but I don't think it's going to fit. I think I'm going to have to get a different one. Thank you for asking. But yeah, I take Grinch out in his cage, and I do have a backpack I could take Grinch out in, but he doesn't like that backpack. Good, Amy. That is sad and extreme, isn't it, John London? Is your grandfather still living, Dr. Mark, or is he gone now? And how are you able to process that? Do you want, if you want to share it, I understand if that's private and you don't want to, but that's a lot. That is a lot. Hello, 21 Gun. Hi, Tay. Your body is like a round goblet. No mixed wine is wanting. Your waist is like a heap of wheat set about with lilies. It's very poetic. So I would think that if your body's like a round goblet, no mixed wine is wanting. Is that, you know, it's like staying compatible. It's kind of like what we're talking about with compatibility, is not mixing, you know, it's something that, you know, and that your waist is like a heap of wheat set about with lilies. Yeah, that was a big one too, Dr. Mark. Absolutely. Yeah. You like the Song of Solomon? Yeah, it's very poetic. Very poetic. Body like a round goblet. No mixed wine is wanting. What do y'all think that this means? I think that it means that, you know, being how you are is fine. So not wanting something else is what I think. You know, is not wanting to be something different than the round goblet. And that your waist is like a heap of wheat set about with lilies. It's just beautiful. So we don't become compatible with healthy relationships by finding healthier people. We become compatible by becoming healthier ourselves. A lot of people are saying, I want healthier people, but are you being compatible with healthy people? You know? So now we take a look at our compatibility. I know I used to not think about compatibility in the beginning of a relationship. I think the term for that now is like when I was on the dating app, people would say, well, if we connect, then, you know, and it's like, what? I'm not on dating apps, but anyway, I know we don't talk about my dating, but the thing is that, you know, a lot of people, if you connect too fast, too soon, too much, that could, you know, be what are you looking for? And I'm not saying it's bad, because it's, as long as you know your compatibility with yourself. So it's about knowing your why, once again, like we talked about last week. You know, a lot of times we really do like people in the beginning, but compatibility takes time, and healing a relationship and not replacing a relationship. This is what I'm working with people. It's like, if they're in a relationship, it's not like, no, you can't run out and replace a relationship. So hear me out, y'all. Replacing a relationship is not okay. You know, healing a relationship if we can, but especially the relationship you have with yourself. You can't run out and get a relationship to heal you. That's not going to work. So a lot of times, okay, I already read that part. So just think about it. When people are running in fear and obsessing, their question is actually usually the fear of their question is this fear of abandonment. A lot of people are running in this fear of abandonment, and this is why we don't check and see if we're compatible with people. I think I lost the thread. I know, right? Grinch is saying he's happy, I think. Yeah. So, anyway, the biggest fear is I think when people are no longer in a relationship is what is that person doing now? That's where a lot of obsession and ruminating come in, is when we are insecure and we're like, what is that person doing now? You know, this is why I'm like, you can't replace relationships, because if we don't fix the healing problem, then if you leave out of a relationship, then you're going to be like, well, what are they doing now? And then you're going to have that abandonment issue. So we have to heal the abandonment issues first, and not abandoning oneself first, you know? So the fear of abandonment and the fear that we will just be forgotten about. How many of you have had breakups and you're just like, the fear that they're just going to forget about you? Angela, I see your question. I'm about to get to it in a minute. So the fear of they're just going to forget about me, just forget about me and move on. I know I've had that fear before. And so this is why we have to heal that fear of abandonment, because then we're going to be longing for something that wasn't even healthy to begin with if we don't heal that fear of abandonment. Does that make sense? So, Angela, what do you think of codependents who are full of jealousy like Cain, Stacy? My sister is jealous of me and she's always competing with everybody. I think it's very sad. It's very sad, but it's also very uncomfortable to be around somebody who's like that, you know, that competing thing. And so it's very annoying. Definitely a call for boundaries is what I think, Angela, is that you have to only be around or talk to that person for such a period of time. Sometimes we need to say, okay, you know, especially when the holidays come up, these things come up a lot. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go to this holiday dinner for an hour, check in, say hello to everybody. And if I feel comfortable there, I'll stay longer than an hour. But to know that I don't have to stay longer than an hour, not to subject ourselves to uncomfortable feelings, because it's very uncomfortable when somebody's jealous and competing with you. And I know, you know, for me, when I feel like somebody's competing with me, or that somebody's trying to mirror what I'm doing, that they're trying to reflect what, you know, trying to, what is it, abstract my personality or whatever, you know, then it's like, I don't even want to say or do anything in front of this person, because then they're going to go be in, you know, because there are people who will do that. Well, when you say something, they're going to go and tell people that because they find that interesting. So, and that killing part, you know, it's very sad, because I've had people jealous of me, you know, in the past and stuff, and it's very painful. And especially, you know, like you're saying, when it's your family and things, and then that it's trying to take away from you, right? That's what we feel like, is they're trying to take away from us. So that's why I say set boundaries. Is that what you're talking about, Angela? Is that helpful? Because, yeah, I think that we have to set boundaries so that we're not subject and, you know, yeah. Thank you very much, Tay. I appreciate that. It's very beautiful. Thank you for sharing what you shared. JR, always take your time. 21 gun. I'm 22 with gunshot wounds. I can have any relationship with people. All right, that's good. Mark Massacre. I hope your wounds heal, really. And if you have any pain inside, it heals. Angela, your correct way of thinking about what you say. God knows the heart and the mind of all men before they speak. Absolutely. And a lot of times it can look like these people are getting ahead, right? That try to steal or abstract your personality and things like this. And so sometimes, you know, it's there's people that I know that are struggling with this, and it's like, no, God does see. God does see. And while it may look like somebody who's wronged people are getting ahead, it will catch up, and it, yeah. Carillas. We all have a lot of sins, darling. John London. Oh, yeah, I don't know why I heard uncle in my head and not grandfather is written. So hard to imagine a man wanting to kill or harm a direct. I know, right? But Marvin Gaye dealt with this, right? He was shot by his daddy. It's like, and they said he was, yeah, it's just crazy. how this generate, I don't know how it comes about. It's just crazy to think about, and it is. It's a lot of healing. Yeah, Grinch has been doing his happy dance. Thank you about my hair, Insula. Tay, my advice, you have to read the book Quran, translate, it's interesting, the best book in the world because from Allah. I do have a Quran in my house. I have all kinds of books in my house. Tay, then do. I don't really read any of those books religiously. I don't. I read a book and then I'm done, and then I start reading a book sometimes and then switch to another book and things like this. So, yeah, I don't like. I respect all religions, but don't support just one. I think Bob Marley was too also killed by his. Yeah, I mean, it's so sad. It's so sad. So, yeah, when we don't know ourselves, we may look to adore someone else. Okay. When we don't know ourselves, we may look to adore someone else to gain our esteem through a relationship and how we want someone to make us feel loved. And this is what a narcissist does, right? You are very welcome, Angela. This is what a narcissist does. This is what I did in my codependence. So codependence and narcissists, this is why they are compatible there for a while, is because when we don't know ourselves, we may look to adore someone else to gain our esteem through a relationship, how we want someone to make us feel loved. So if we don't love ourselves, then we're going to be trying to, get love from somebody else. Thank you, JR. Yes, I do. I stay in my lane. Angela, thank you for your advice. It's very important to set boundaries and walls with people who aren't happy with. Absolutely, absolutely, because there are people that, yeah. John London, something terrible about parents who think, I brought you into this world, I can take you out. You're very right about boundaries. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy some of the things that parents used to say, and you hear about mamas in the South, and I didn't say a lot of those things. Yeah, not to, because it don't sound nice, So when we don't know ourselves, we may look to adore someone else to gain our esteem through a relationship and how we want someone else to make us feel loved, seen, and have the romances in mind. But sometimes we try to turn our relationship into a romance without compatibility, and it actually turns out to be a horror story, right? So this is why sometimes we end up feeling lost in a relationship and blaming someone that they didn't turn out how we wanted. We may think that they tricked us, but coming out of self-accountability, we need to realize if we bounced from a relationship quickly without consideration of what our own thoughts, feelings, and values are, this is where we come to the blind love, or love is blind, right? We're just going off of hormones sometimes. God does know our heart and intentions. That's what I love about this group, is I think that we're all, centered in that same plane, and that we have a good heart and intentions here. So thank you. So when I was hurt before, I would think that it was my fault and that I had done something wrong. When I used to get hurt in relationships, and it would send that longing back. But we've talked about before how you get the dopamine and the serotonin hits going back and forth in these relationships, and that can become an addiction in itself. So, but when I was hurt before, I would think it was my fault. What did I do wrong? And that I had done something wrong, and I had bent myself to live in their values. I had bent myself. Actually, I had, I'll think of the word in a minute. I know the words, and sometimes I'll just forget, have a blank. Compromised. I had compromised myself in some of my relationships because I thought I put them on a pedestal more than myself. John London, I felt that today, like I got in contact with God and I didn't even have to say anything before I felt like my prayer was answered and accepted. Yes, that's what I love about getting outside. Sometimes I can be in my head in my house, and then when I get outside and get to go for those walks, it's like, that's a God thing, Mark Massacre. Dr. Mark, I have acknowledged always that I don't have God in my heart and my life. He has me. And when I began to think this way, then I really began to grow up. I just love knowing that with God, all is possible, because sometimes we can live in these limited thoughts, but with our, whether you call it God or whatever, but we can live so limitedly, but that's not what our source wants for us. Our source wants us to have amazing lives and to be that expansive life. And I'm learning and still growing up. I know, me too. Me too. It's an adventure. It's an adventure. So the reality was, in my old relationships, that I just didn't listen. A lot of times, hope and physical attraction had me building on my fairy tale, just like JR was saying, attractive people or whatever. And when it all fell apart, it really hurt, and I didn't consider if I was compatible with the person or not. When I have an opportunity to be with nice, decent people like most of all of you, I really feel the presence of good spirit and a good Lord. Thank you. That's an amazing compliment. Thank you, Dr. Mark. Because, yeah, I feel that way in this group, too. So compatibility with yourself and others. When we hear the word compatibility, and I think that's the most important relationships we can have is with ourself and our source, and that is an extension of the relationships outside of ourselves, right? And that's why we're here, because we have that extension. We do have that connection, communication. So when we hear, because this is communication, I love it. I love seeing the communication here. So when we hear the word compatibility, most of us immediately think about another person. We think about relationships, marriage, dating, friendships, family. We ask ourselves, are we compatible? But what if we've been asking the wrong question? What if the first relationship we need to examine isn't the one with someone else? What if it's the one we have with ourselves? Tay. Mull it over. I will mull it over. The Quran respects the Creator, His attributes, His prophets and messengers, as well as humanity and its rights. It contains miracles that modern science is discovering today. I love me some magic, mystery, and miracles. Tay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Dr. Mark. Thank you for thanking me, but I wouldn't say if you wanted a nice lady. You are, and some of the ladies and gentlemen in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. We do have amazing people in this chat, and we are very fortunate to be able to come together like this. And I'm so grateful because we are all over the world, all over the world. So I love it. JR, he spoke. All right, Nato, thank you very much. All right, because before we can truly understand compatibility with another person, we have to understand whether we're living in harmony with our own values, our own truth, and our own choices. So I don't believe most people have a relationship problem. I believe that many of us have a relationship with ourselves that we've never really taken time to understand. I'm not talking about us here, but a lot of times people haven't taken the time to understand the relationship they have with their self. Are they being kind to their self? Or are they hurting themselves? Because a lot of times we are. So when we say that I want this, but we do make a different choice, then that's maybe not necessarily being kind to ourselves. Angela, we need to be loyal to ourselves and our values instead of trying to change who we are to be with someone. Absolutely, 100%. I agree. I had to learn that the hard way for a while. Sometimes we've learned to meet expectations, like you said. We've learned to meet expectations. We've learned to adapt. We learned to survive. We learned to keep the peace. John London. I feel blessed to be able to be spiritually connected to great, beautiful souls. I got confirmation my psychic intuition on pregnancy and gender was right with the other day about someone. See, I love intuition. I love intuition. That's good. That's very good, John London. I like that. I'm intuitive too, so I like that. So, yeah, somewhere along the way, many of us stopped asking, what's true for me? What's true for me? Like Angela says, that's so important to know what's true for ourselves. So, when we lose that connection, it's easy to begin looking outside of ourselves for answers that can only be found within. See, happiness, I've talked about that. Happiness, love come from within. That's why forgiveness of ourselves and boundaries with ourselves is very important, because sometimes we have to have that boundary not to self-sabotage when we are, having a bad day, or somebody's projecting meanness onto us. So what does compatibility really mean? Compatibility isn't about agreeing on everything. You don't have to agree on everything to be compatible. It isn't about liking the same music or having the same hobbies. It isn't ever, it's about not never having conflict. A lot of people that I've worked with, and I even had it before, the fear of conflict and confrontation. See, that we have to get over that fear to be compatible, because we're not going to be able to live in our truth if we are in the fear of conflict and confrontation. There's going to be a part of us that's going to feel like it's dying, because we're supposed to live this unlimitedness. So compatibility is the ability to honor who you are while also respecting who the other person is. It begins with honesty, not honesty about someone else, honesty with ourselves. And so, can I recognize what I value? This is important to know if we're compatible with people. Can I recognize what I value? Can I recognize what I need? If we are valuing peace, and like was said earlier, with some of the family, there's chaos, whether it's jealousy or whatever, we need to recognize our value. Can I recognize when I'm living in alignment with those values and when I'm not? So setting those boundaries is that I'm going to go to this family get together for an hour, and if I am okay with it, then I'll stay, and if not, then I'm not going to subject myself to this. I have a pretty good and simple philosophy for life, but one of my favorites is to thine own self be true. Yes, that's an important one. To know thyself, to thy own self be true. Those are very important philosophies. That's very good. It's so good not to be ashamed of ourselves and not to be acting ashamed of ourselves. So living out of alignment. Sometimes we say we want peace, yet we continue choosing environments that thrive on conflict. I haven't found a calling in professional life yet. I tried accountancy, office life, didn't feel right anywhere. Been working on myself for now. Yeah. That accountant stuff is hard stuff, numbers like that. I can remember phone numbers and numbers, but accountant stuff, oof. Anytime there's formulas, it's like, oh, I'm lost. We say we want honesty, yet we avoid difficult conversations. And when we hear difficult conversations, do we react? Do we get mad just because it's a difficult conversation, or do we process it? We say we want respect. Okay, we say we want, stuff's popping up on my phone. We say we want respect, yet we dismiss our own needs. See, that's what a lot of people do, is they may say they want respect, I used to do it, but dismiss their own needs. We say we want trust, yet we don't trust ourselves enough to listen when something doesn't feel right. The intuitiveness. We know. We have an intuition, but sometimes we just ignore those red flags and go. I don't think most of us do, but we have maybe in the past. I know I have. So those aren't failures, they're invitations. It's not a failure. They're invitations just to become more aware, because we don't know it until we know. Because our actions are always showing us something. Whether we're self-sabotaging, are we trying to stuff our feelings? A lot of times that's with food addiction. Am I trying to stuff my feelings? I did accounting for 10 years, had some really bad experiences with some of those. I know that's hard work, accounting. I could never do accounting. Angela, did you try to control everyone's feelings when... I think he said, Dr. Mark, that he's working on himself, trying to find his happy place. Sometimes we can just go to a job, but I think he's probably looking for something that's feeling his passion. Did you try to control everyone's feelings when you were codependent, Stacy? Did you try to control your environment now? I have boundaries in my environment now. I don't know. I guess I would say that I control my environment now to a degree. I don't like a lot of people coming over my house all the time. I mean, there's certain things I think that are basic things. When I was codependent, I did try to control with the words. Like I said, I would try to get people to approve of me. So it was a manipulation more so than a control, because I wanted to be accepted in my codependency. And I would be, the way I would try to control was like being that doormat, always being, saying, okay, I got it, I can do it, or I got it, I can do it, just people pleasing all the time, taking on more stuff than I needed to take on. So that is a form of control, but it's manipulation more so. It's subtle. So in my codependency, what I had to learn, in healing codependency, was learning to use my words, what I wanted, what I needed, and what I desired, rather than trying to control or manipulate to get those wants and needs met. So now do I try to control my environment? I don't let chaos in my environment. And I do, have the boundaries. I don't think the boundaries are control, but I do have boundaries that, I have the boundaries with myself, that I stay focused on what it is that I'm trying to do. I'll be writing sometimes in the daytime. I'll be writing our topics, the content that I'm creating. And so if somebody calls or what have you when I'm trying to write, then I don't answer the phone sometimes if I'm trying to stay focused. So I don't think I'm so controlling. Grinch, am I controlling? Because I just live with the Grinch. So there's that. But I don't think I'm as controlling as I used to be. I don't feel like through healing that I have a need to control, because I'm more directed towards what I want than trying to control somebody that's not compatible, Shalajaran, we will pray for your husband and your children and for a permanent job. I know that's a big thing right now. Love many, trust no one, Dr. Mark. It's important to trust ourselves. I've got friends that one of my friends just sent a text on the phone. I'm going in her apartment tomorrow because I'm like, I figure I'll probably do this when I get over to Europe there, John London. I don't know if you've thought of this, but when I get to Europe, probably this is what I always end up being, a house manager or a personal assistant or something like that. Being intuitive is a good way to do that, because first off, when I've been house manager before or a personal assistant, I would pray before I go into people's houses, and I have the people give me the keys to their houses a lot, So I pray before I go in somebody's house to be able to do what I need to do in there, to take care of the business so that their life is much more easier, that's what they hire me to do. I am outgoing. Thank you, JR. So that's what they hire me to do. And I figure that's probably what I do when I get to Europe, is somebody will hire me to manage everything in their house. So tomorrow morning there's a housekeeper going to my friend's apartment tomorrow. And so I've got to be up there tomorrow to go meet the housekeeper and things, and be there with when the housekeeper comes. I like to say, and trust people to be themselves. Trust a snake to be a snake and a dog to be a dog. Trust is hard but necessary, I think, for a nice life. Yes. And once we trust ourselves, we are, gonna know. We just know intuitively. Well, Kyle, you look like a person with wisdom. If it's Kyle, we're talking about compatibility. If you could keep it on topic, but if it's a nice question, you can certainly ask me. No one can control Grinch. He's always out of control. He is out of control. He is. You are so right, Angela. First things first, being in charge of control of yourself, and then the way you live is within your right. Trying to control the people is a bit much. At least I feel this way. Yeah. That's where freedom is, right? We talked about freedom last week, and self-accountability. And so freedom is when we're not trying to control everybody and everything outside of ourselves, So yeah, exactly. That's where freedom is. It's not in controlling. There's no freedom in controlling. Thank you. He's singing pretty, isn't he? Yeah, you're singing so pretty. So compatibility begins within. See, when we know what we want, we know what we're compatible with, who we're compatible with. So the relationship you have with yourself quietly influences every other relationship in your life. Yeah, house management, personal assistant, because I handle people's stuff. I've worked for one of the people that I worked with was a disc jockey, a radio disc jockey. And so she would be at the station all day, and then she would have promotions in the evening. So I made sure that her life went like this. I knew all her numbers for everything. I would lower her electric bills. I would make sure that her shoes were done. If she had to have reef soles or have heels put on or whatever, I would make sure things got done. And then I would also be there as a sounding board about, what she was doing when she would come in sometimes. So yeah, I get to be a personal assistant, and I figure that's what I'll do. Stacy, I really do like you very much on a correct level. I say this to you, and I love many people as the good Lord has taught us, but I don't trust anyone. Well, Dr. Mark, I understand that with your grandfather, I would have problems trusting people too. If, Grandpa said these experiences that you've had have been devastating, being shot and that, so those are devastating. I can totally understand why you don't trust anyone. That's devastating and that's hard, and it just, I'm sure you trust better than you did at one time, but I totally understand that. Mom, Grinch is the boss. Yes, he is. I used to tell him, yeah, you're not the boss of me. You're right, Mom. Good morning, Katan. It's good to see you. You're a lover, not a fighter or a truster. Well, good. As long as you trust yourself, Dr. Mark. And it sounds like you do. It sounds like you have an amazing life, so. The relationship you have with yourself quietly influences every other relationship in your life. If you're constantly abandoning yourself to make others comfortable, you may begin believing that love requires self-sacrifice. If you're disconnected from your own needs, you may expect someone else to recognize them for you. They should know. You know how many people say they should know? And so if you don't trust your own voice, you may spend your life looking for someone else to tell you who you are. None of this means that you're broken. None of this means that you're less than anybody else. It simply means that there's an opportunity for you to reconnect with yourself. So for those in long-term relationships, we got Greg. He's not here this evening, but we got Greg Woolridge. He's in a long-term relationship. I think Stalin said trust but verify. I can also relate to Dr. Mark. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you, John London. So this is for those in relationships. We do have Kim's in a long-term relationship. Some people here have been in long-term, Pam's in long-term relationship, and they have healthy long-term relationships. Angela, you can't trust people who are dishonest and disloyal to themselves because they aren't going to be honest. And that's right on point, Angela. Absolutely. So I think that's yeah, I'm going to pin that because that's for true. That's for real. So yes, that's a good point. So for those in long-term relationships, I hear you, Kim. Those in long-term relationships, this isn't for only people who are dating or friendships. For those who have shared years or even decades with someone, sometimes couples don't stop loving each other. They simply stop checking in with themselves. Life becomes busy, careers, children, responsibilities, and routines. Yeah, it was a good pen, wasn't it, John? So without realizing it, we can begin living on autopilot. And I think a lot of couples begin living on autopilot, like Groundhog Day, autopilot. So when that happens, we may assume that we've grown apart. And what we've lost is the habit of being present with ourselves and with each other. I do tell y'all to put down the phones, don't I? And I'm not talking about just that, I tell couples, put the phones down in the evening time. Put the phones down in the evening time. I've even told, put the phone down. I put my phone down in the evening time, put the phones down. Or if you're going to listen to something like listening to, it is so funny, Alfred Hitchcock. I was thinking about that is so crazy, like the intuition we were talking about, John London. Before I got on here tonight, I was thinking about, you remember how Alfred Hitchcock, and I was wondering if anybody remembered Alfred Hitchcock, but he used to come on and say, good evening. I can't say it as well. I wish I could hear you all talk. I wish I could hear John London talk because I love the accents. But Alfred Hitchcock used to come on at 10 o'clock at night and where I lived, and it'd be like, good evening. So, Dr. Mark. Yes, I love reading all of your comments here. Angela, thank you for appreciating. You are very welcome, Angela. You always ask some amazing questions. Kim, life be busy sometimes and we have a hard time making time for each other. I know, and everyone wants to get caught up on the phone. I have to tell people, put the phones down. And I listen to music at night. If I do have an electronic device on, it's music. Because when we go to bed, I think that, and I don't know this, but I think that whatever we're listening to before we go to bed, we could possibly dream about, or it could occupy our subconscious, and so do I want this thing coming back up in my dreams, and what I do like is listening to music before bed, music that used to make me happy when I was a child. I listen to me some Elvis sometimes. I listen to Bon Jovi sometimes. And yes, Grinchy. If you know what Grinchy just said, but I'm not going to say what Grinchy just said. So back to the couples. So healthy relationships aren't built by pretending we never change, because we do change, like was said earlier. And some people have these lives that we like listening to. Ah, thanks, Kim. I love that. I love you. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. That's so crazy. I was watching the other day week and singing the theme of the Alfred Hitchcock song. I know, right? And then here comes Alfred Hitchcock in this live. That is so funny. So I'm glad he showed up. So healthy relationships aren't built by trying to pretend we never change, because we do. We change, we grow, we evolve. We're going to change or grow, evolve one way or not. And if not, then it's not going to feel good. So they're strengthened when two people remain willing to communicate honestly and stay curious and continue choosing connection. So here's some questions to reflect on. Instead of asking, why do I keep attracting this? Why doesn't my relationship feel the same? What if we asked, am I living according to my values? See, you got a lot of it. You didn't expect to be part of the show, part of this thing tonight, did you, Alfred Hitchcock? And I know you're spelling your name different, but I was thinking Hitchcock, so that's where it's going. So what if we ask, am I living according to my values? Am I speaking honestly? Am I listening to myself? Am I showing up in a way that reflects the kind of relationship I hope to create? Am I being who I want to see in a relationship? Because if I'm showing up in a relationship defensive, like we talked about last week, do I want somebody being defensive back? So showing up how we want to be treated, and it's not always, people aren't always going to treat you, the golden rule, it's not always going to be the same. And sometimes that's where you have to set boundaries, is not, like get all mad and stuff, but set boundaries, because not everybody's going to treat you how you want to be treated. Not everybody's going to treat you the way that, like Angela was saying earlier, not everyone's going to treat you the way that you are. So we need to just shuffle along, because in the Bible too, when Jesus went into places with people who weren't compatible, what did he do? He just dusted he just dusted his feet off and went somewhere else. That's what he did. JR. I know her company is so awesome here, isn't it? She always asks the best questions. Well, thank you, Alfred Hitchcock. So, asking ourselves, am I showing up in this instead of just being me? Because when I worked on my codependency, that's what I had to work on, is that it's not all about me. It's not all about me, because I could be getting twisted. I would be defensive. I would be getting twisted because I was thinking it was all about me. I know we do love Angela, and she's got some great questions. Her questions and her input, the input. Do unto others until you would have them do unto you as you would. Yes, exactly. And even, do it anyway. There's a country song, Martina McBride, do it anyway. Love, do it anyway. Even if you've been hurt, do it anyway. But it doesn't mean the same person, y'all. It just means be that love. Be love. I love you. So because compatibility isn't something that we wait to find, it's something that we practice every day through the relationship we have with ourselves. Some people don't want to grow and change, and they need to find someone who is going to be at their level forever. Absolutely. Or beneath them, right? Is it like the narcissist is always going to want to put somebody beneath them? You like that song? Well, cool. So it's something that we practice every day through the relationship we have with ourselves, this compatibility. So in closing, we're getting close to the breathing time. John London, are you still awake? So, and Dr. Mark, you're down there. It's late where you are too, since you're over there too. So, in closing, this week I want to invite you to shift your focus. I want to invite you to shift your focus, not toward changing somebody else, not toward fixing a relationship, not toward deciding whether someone else is compatible with you. I want to invite you to become curious about the relationship you have with yourself. Because when you're living in alignment with your values, choices, it becomes clearer. Thank you. I'm glad that you're here. We're about to get to the breathing. Alfred Hitchcock, I don't think anyone's rude here. Everyone's being, doing some nice input here. That's what this is, a good community up in here. And so they're all just having some good input. You should have to be a professor instead of motivational speaker. We just never know what I'm going to be. I'm revamping my resume too, just like John London was. I'm revamping my resume. I'm a coach, but I'm also a content creator. I'm also so many things. So we are unlimited people. Yes, exactly. Be kind. That's all. Just be kind. That's what we do here. I don't know what you mean, Alfred Hitchcock. You need to be kind, though. All right. Become curious about the relationship you have with yourself. Because when we're living in alignment with our values, our choices become clearer, our boundaries become healthier, and our relationships become more honest. And something interesting begins to happen. We stop chasing what looks right, and we start recognizing what truly fits. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for apologizing, Alfred Hitchcock. Are y'all ready to breathe, darlings? Ready to breathe? I love all the people in this room. This is a beautiful community, and I'm so happy to be here with y'all. Alfred Hitch. Oh, okay. Thanks, John London. So are y'all ready to breathe, darlings, and get you some blessed and regenerated rest? I'm going to go into a meditation after this. I've got a meditative group at 8 o'clock my time. So thank you, Angela, for being here. You always have such interesting input, too. I appreciate that. And Kim, look at Kim. She didn't have to throw anyone out. All right. Can we get some hearts for Kim for not having to throw anyone out, y'all? I don't know if I can even do hearts in my own videos. John London. Alfred Hitchcock, on the other hand, is really funny and has, there we go. Had this weekly show that reruns British TV. Great director's movie. Yes. The Birds was the biggest one, right? I saw The Birds, I don't know how many times, but I used to get up, and I'm still here after all these years. Everyone is so great in here today. Yes, I used to get to stay up. It was a treat to get to stay up and watch Alfred Hitchcock. It was Alfred Hitchcock and then The Twilight Zone. Thank you, beautiful mama, for sending hearts for Kim. Kim, you got my heart, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you is known as the golden rule. Exactly. And taught to all the people from the scriptures of the Bible. Yes, I watched a documentary on him once, and his treatment of women he worked with wasn't great, but masterpieces, yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen that documentary. I'll have to see that. Thank you. We love you too, beautiful Kim. America was your limelight. There we go. So, as we go to bed tonight, this has been a great live. Like Kim said, she didn't even have to put anybody out. And you all, your communication is great. I'm so glad that we are all compatible here. So let's just breathe that in and how good that feels when we hold our breath for that 4 counts. And then release in any tension of the day, because many of you will be going to sleep. I'll be going to sleep here after the meditation, probably during the meditation, honestly. So let's just breathe, darlings. 5 breaths, and just do the best you can. If you can't hold it to 4 counts, just do what you can. Okay, so we're going to take a deep breath in. Notice your body language changes. Your shoulders rise, your heart opens, your breath can go through here, and your mind will open too. That intuition, we can get in our intuition. Yes, Angela, let's breathe. And the bird was set upon. Heard the scene, and they redid it more than once. Yes, yes. The birds was amazing. So let's just take that deep breath in. Ready? Breathe in. Hold it. And release. Breathe. Hold it. Release. Breathe. Hold it. Release. Two more. Breathe in. Hold it. Release. Last one. Breathe in. Hold it. And release. All right. Yeah. I just know that I used to love to watch that. I haven't watched it in a long time. All right, y'all. How do you feel? You ready for some blessed and regenerated rest? I'm going to go meditate here in a few minutes. You're very welcome, Angela. Thank you for being here. Yes, I hope everyone has a good night too. Thank you all for being here. And you're such a beautiful community. JR, John London, Dr. Mark, Kim, as always, for moderating. Of course, yes, relax. I'm going to have my golden milk. Thank you so much, JR, John London. Thank you, Dr. Mark, Kim, Angela, Alfred Hitchcock, and Mama. Thank y'all so much for being here. And I hope you have some blessed rest. I know I'm going to. All right. I'll see y'all Wednesday morning. If I don't get to see you Wednesday morning, I hope you'll catch the replay. And then I'll be back Friday night. Okay? All right. I love y'all. Good night. Make sure I didn't miss any comments because that's important. Good night. Thank you. It felt really amazing to me too. Yes. And I'm going to have to look at, at Dr. Mark's video or pictures, like Pam said. All right. Yes, Mom. Enjoy your bath. Play Como at Bellagio, Italy. All right. All right. Good night, y'all. Thank you for the hearts. Talk to you later. Bye.